Three. What up, fight fans? I'm Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and this is an all new edition of Back Talk. For this episode, I'm joined by one of the elite talents from one championship. He's a former champ, an almost champ, and is now a current champ at featherweight, who will once again defend his title on October 30th at one championship inside the Matrix against top contender Thanh Le, and that man is the situation himself, Mr. Martin Nguyen. Martin, thanks for joining me as co-host for this podcast, bro.
What's happening, man? Nah, it's an honor for me, man. It's good. It's a good bit of downtime now, so it's pretty cool.
Now I have a bunch of questions. We with these podcasts, this back talk, we have also questions from fans. Actually, when I put up the post for you for Instagram, I actually got a lot of questions for you from Instagram. But I'm gonna give my questions first because I'm leading the co-hosting here, so I'm gonna give my question for you. I have so many. Now you have not fought since August of last year, a 14-month hiatus. This is by far the longest your career. So, Martin, what the hell have you been up to, man? Besides dealing with this
Right.
pandemic, like, have you gotten to watch all the movies and shows you always wanted? Built a new shed? Maybe laid out a garden, perhaps? Maybe checked in about being the new James Bond, like we've talked about in the past? What have you kept busy doing without fighting, man?
Wait. Your shirt, is that Ric Flair?
No. It's Larry David
Ah, damn, I thought it was Ric Flair. That shirt, nah. Um, Look, man, I got pretty unlucky. So since my last bout against Masashima, I was scheduled to defend my featherweight title against Christian Lee. That fight fell through. Christian took a last minute fight in which he didn't have to. He fought for the final Grand Prix against Sagid, and you know what? He won. Congratulations. But that in him doing that, it left him with 7 weeks to lose like 7 kilos ish to fight me, and that wasn't going to happen. I knew that wasn't going to happen. And in terms of getting another opponent, the chances was very slim. So I just maintained to what I did and kept training as usual. And we till then I was keeping in contact with Chatri, and we'll keep in contact as to who I wanted to fight, and I gave him the 5 names that I wanted to fight, and sure enough, Thanh Le won his bout in January or February this year, and that shot him straight to the top of the contenders that I shot out to him. So we were scheduled to compete in April 17th of this year, and as the weeks were getting closer, you know, the anticipation and the fight nerves were coming through, and then COVID hit, man. COVID happened, and
Yep.
the second fight fell through, and I just stuck to what I know, man. I just kept training. I flew straight back home. I had to quarantine for 14 days. In saying that, I was still training every single day, whether it be body weight workouts, weight workouts. I work out with my family. I had my coach come through, and we worked out as well. And we stayed to the path, and we stayed on the course. And sure enough, everything started to ease up, and Australia was in lockdown, and no one was allowed to leave the country. No one was allowed to enter, and it came to a point where I had to know if I can leave if the time came to it if I had a bout, and so I was speaking to government officials and government protocols that we had to follow, and sure enough, Rob Whitaker had a fight. He lined up. He left the country. Alex Volkanovski had a fight. He lined up. He left the country, and my application that I put through was denied. And I was like,
Oh wow.
"Are these guys allowed to go and fight?" And we're in the same profession, same type of level, and I'm not allowed. And then it came to them emailing me back and saying, you know what, anyone can apply for these exemptions to leave Australia, but you have to have like a possible like evidence as to why you are leaving,
Okay.
and support from a government official as to why you're leaving. And thankfully enough, I know people in the government which they wrote a letter to confirm that I was a world champion and that I will be defending my title. And sure enough, my application got approved, ready to leave. And the moment Chachu started announcing events and saying that this event is going to happen and this is who you'll be fighting. I signed the contract, and the next day I left the country. So it was like done in there. Came to Florida. Took me about a week to climatize, and another week I went and cornered a friend at the UFC. So it was just like more of a climatize, and I came back. I was still training within those times, and yeah, man, we're 5 weeks deep into our camp and ready to go.
Now, this wasn't a planned question, but I'm glad you brought up the Christian Lee thing and how he was able to fight you and that didn't come through, because you have kind of been at this championship top of the mountain thing for like a while now, having won the title in multiple divisions. He went in there. Now, I would chalk it up probably to immaturity. He's only like 22 years old, but he went in there on 10 days notice as the champion against one of the scariest guys in the division. What are your thoughts on something like that? Would you make that decision? Do you feel that's a risk, too much of a risk for a champion, that maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze unless it's a crazy payday? Like, would you have jumped in on 10 days notice just to fight the toughest guy in the division and randomly?
Majority of my fights, to be honest, I went on a 5-fight winning streak in the featherweight division. Majority of them were short notice fights. I consider short notice 2-3 weeks notice fights, and I was always ready. I was always ready to go. And when we train as an athlete and you train all year round,
True,
you're always ready.
Yeah.
So weight is never an excuse unless you're those type of guys that like you train 2-3 times a week and then wait for a fight and then go into camp. But when you're a martial artist, as like Christian, he owns the family gym or whatever it is, and he's in there every single day. So when you're in there every single day, you're always going to be on point every single day. And yes, your weight is going to be there, but the main things you're going to be doing is it's just sharpening what you know, and obviously learning new things. You can't really learn too much because you don't know what type of opponent you're going up against and what's going to work and what's not going to work. So you stick to the basics. You keep training those basics, and sure enough, when a fight comes around, you got time to adjust and go in. And this is what we do, man. This is how we are as fighters. Take as many fights as we can, evolve, get as much cage time as we can, and go from there.
Well, and mainly I asked just that when it's this high level, when it's the top guys in the division, I figured, and as a novice, because I'm not a fighter, I don't understand on that level like you do. When you're fighting someone really talented, one of the best in the division, you'd want as much time to prepare for their specific skills and watch the tape and learn their tendencies. So in a way, would you say as long as your fundamentals are right and your basics are good, that's key? And also, would you say maybe like all of you guys are kind of watching each other anyway, so you kind of have like a mental blueprint anyway, so maybe you don't need 8 weeks just to watch tape of him?
Yeah, 100%. Like guys that are in my division, I put myself in that same position as well. I know how every single one of them fight. It's just a matter of adjusting the game, adjusting my plans, and everything it comes down to game planning. It comes down to coaches. We all have great coaches to our eyes, and there's ways to adjust, and if we adapt or not, it's up to us. And every single one of my opponents in this division, I know the way they fight. I know what they're good at, what they're very good at, and what they're not as good at. And yeah, man, it's just up to us. Once we sign that contract, is lock on. What's the blueprint?
Here in the U.S., new daily coronavirus cases are still tracking in like the 40,000 range, while in Australia, it's below like 200 a day. It's far better out there. Was there ever any thought of like just basing your camp out of Australia for this fight because of the insane numbers here, people getting lost fights and not getting title fights because of testing positive? Even Korea Zombie chose to train in South Korea instead of doing his normal training, I believe is in Arizona, for this fight coming up this week. Or do you feel like the recipe for success at Sanford has been too good? You have to run that risk of a positive test. It's not like a positive test you'll get sick, just a positive test on a lost fight, lost money. Like the recipe for success is too good at your gym. Like, you know what, I got to be at Sanford. I'm not going to be the best version of me if I'm not at Sanford for a fight.
You just said it right there, man. Never have I ever had a doubt to do a camp at home since coming over here. I had the chance of training with Alex Volkanovski. We sparred multiple times and moved around multiple times, and with a lot of top featherweights in Australia as well. But never in a million years had I thought I want to do my whole camp here.
Okay.
It's just what I know, right? The formula was right. The coaches, the training partners is right. And if something's not broken to that extent, why change it, right? So never had I ever had a doubt of flying over here. My first thoughts were, okay, which airlines are flying over? I don't care I'm coming over. So the moment I got that contract, as I said, I signed it. Got the first flight the next day out, and I was just like packing. I was throwing everything in there. Had my COVID test and everything done to make sure. And yeah, I'm a bit of a clean freak compared. Because of my wife. So coming over here, I'm very particular. Always clean, always spray down my shit, and go from there.
How much can you tell me about like where your fight's gonna be, like the events happen? Because the one hasn't given up a ton of information and stuff like that. Like, how much have you been filled in on like the pandemic protocols they're gonna do? Keeping everyone COVID free. Like, are you guys gonna be full on bubble in a hotel? Like, how much do you know about what you're gonna be dealing with in a couple weeks?
I know a bit, but whether or not, because it's trial and error, whether or not it's going to stay like that, we don't know. I The destination I can't announce. Why it's 100%. You're trying to get me in trouble, man.
A little bit, a little bit.
I can't announce that. That's up to Tasha to announce that and the whole card as well. But I do know a fair bit of fighters that are fighting on that card. They've reached out and we've all spoken and it's going to be an electrifying night. Just know that October 30th, it's going to happen. It's a guarantee going to happen. Providing my opponent or myself don't get corona or sick before then. But it's going to happen 100%.
Now, I'm assuming they'll probably follow similar things as Bellator and UFC are doing. Like, and I had to do 2 Bellator events a few weeks back, so I did the 24-hour quarantine in a hotel, and I wasn't fully prepared for it. It was weird to just do 24 hours. Have you prepared for a likely 24-hour quarantine after you get tested? Like, are you bringing a lot of books? Are you bringing the video game system? Like, are you making sure you don't go crazy in your hotel room?
I'm made for quarantine, man. I can sit, I can kick back, I can Netflix. Yeah, it's gonna be, but we're gonna have to quarantine. I can't quarantine with my brother Ang or with my teammates or my coaches. You got to quarantine on your own.
Mm-hmm.
But quarantine. I'm made for quarantine. I can just kick back. I can watch Netflix. I can play games. I can still communicate with the outside world, one way or another. So I don't really care. As long as I just make sure my body and my mind is right, and yeah, go from there from fight time.
Now let's talk about this fight with Thanh. You have faced two good guys from a team like Team Lakai and strikers like Kevin Bellegnon, Edward Folegang, really good strikers. Where does Thanh and his Taekwondo base rank with guys like that and any other really good strikers you faced in your career? Is he just as good? Maybe more dangerous because he's shown the pop in his strikes where he has a bunch of finishes in his career? Like, where does he rank in terms of some of the more dangerous strikers you fight so far?
Yeah, so every single fighter, I don't look at them as any better than anyone else. I put them at the highest of the high. Okay. This is what they're gonna come with. This is what they know. Obviously, they're gonna come with all guns blazing, and it's up to me to adjust as a fighter. That's how I've been fighting basically my whole career. I am the champion, and this is what champions do, and we adjust and we find a way to win, and we have the will to win.
You train at an elite gym, like I mentioned, in Sanford, with really good fighters and strikers. You have proven throughout your career how good of a striker you are, under the tutelage of the genius that is Henry Hooft. Do you expect this fight to mostly play out on the feet? And even though striking is his strength, do you feel you are better than him at even his strongest space?
We'll see where the fight goes, man. Whether it hits the ground, obviously the fight's going to stay stand up. And if I feel comfortable in the stand up, then it's going to stay there all 5 rounds. Wherever it finishes, where it will finish. But every fight I plan on just finishing my opponent, regardless being on the ground or on the feet. So we never know, man. He might come out and be like a Division 1 wrestler. We never know. As soon as we go in there, we duel it out, man, and we adjust. What we do as martial artists, man. You can never go in there with a complete blueprint game plan, because if it doesn't go right, and you're not adjusting, you start panicking. And I paid the price when it came to that fight against Bellingham. So game plans and all that, I've thrown that out the window. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do me. I'm going to lay hands on him and go from there.
On the same card as you, your bestie, Ong La and Song, is set to once again defend his light heavyweight title against Rainier the Ritter. He may not be familiar to some fans, but this guy's legit. He's 12-0, has finished all of his opponents except one fight, and he usually gets them out pretty early in those fights too. Is this a real dangerous fight for Ong? Does he have to be careful not to kind of just have a letdown, which would be completely human and normal after this big win over Brandon Vera? Because this guy is lethal. He has to maintain this level, and not think he's not of Vera's level.
Angler's a very smart fighter. He might come across as a steamroller, a tank in a fight, but that's him mentally breaking you down, physically making you feel that your game plan is not going to work on him, and then he'll go for the finish. I mean, I might be a bit biased, but I don't think, good on Rainier for getting a good record and fighting some top guys in the division. But it's not me being biased, man. I'm telling you, these levels. I feel like Angla he's just reached the pinnacle, and he's just mentally ready to break this guy, and physically looks phenomenal. So.
And I'm planning to talk to Ong tomorrow, and I'm going to ask him a similar question, and you tell me, because again, like going back, you've been a champion for a while, you fought a lot of the top fighters in a few divisions. Ong has done the same thing too. Is there a difference from just the elite, the top three, the champion, to the other guys? Like, is Rainier really legitimately taking up? Like, is it a clear change in competition? Can you feel a difference? Like, when you're fighting a champion, do you feel like, shit, this is harder than the other guys I fought? Like, is, Tan and is Rainier jumping up big levels to face champions like you and Ong? Like, it's a whole nother kind of league.
Nah, I feel like they somewhat deserved it. They got wins over top contenders, and I'm sure they'll be fully prepared and 100% ready to take us on. We're not any better than anyone else, but when it comes to fighting and the will to win, that's where we show that why we are champions. So every fight, man, every fight is a 50-50 fight, no matter what. And we'll go from there. You just gotta level it out and be willing to take this guy out wherever it takes.
Now, Australia and New Zealand have been doing big things at the highest levels of MMA for over the last few years, with you being an example of that. However, there hasn't been a lot of women to get major world titles from that part of the world. Now, I know Megan Anderson got the Invicta title. That's probably the most prominent one. But however, on Thursday, Arlene Blencow will have that chance against Cyborg at Bellator 249. I just talked to her today. How big would it be for her to be a woman from Australia, from that part of the world, to get a major MMA championship like the Bellator title? How big is it for you as a guy that is now a native of Australia, grew up there and stuff like that, as a father, for your daughters to see a strong female example like her in MMA? How big is it a deal? How much are you rooting for her, and what do you think her chances are against Cyborg?
100%, man. When it comes to Aussie fighters, man, there's nothing I wouldn't want the most than for them to succeed, So I'm sure that's how they feel about me, and I feel the same way about her. It's a very, very tough fight. We all know how good Cyborg is, but Arlene's like a dark horse, man. She's been working with Alex and Joe Lopez down in Windang, freestyle MMA. So I feel like she's done everything right. It looks like she's done everything right on their Instagram stories and everything. So I'm rooting for her, whether she loses or win. I'm still going for the Australian athlete.
Now, will you mention it like that Christian Lee was going to fight you, come down to your weight class, and fight against you? Now, let's say we talked in the past, and you talked about how, you want to create this legacy at featherweight. And you're doing it. I think this will be, if, let's say you defeat Tan, this will be your fourth or third defense at featherweight. Fourth defense. How, is legacy still the plan? Continue on, just be this dominant featherweight champion? Do you feel confidence in the contenders after Tan, or is there part of you that's thinking, you know what, maybe I can be the first guy to be a two-time champ, or I can finally reach that 3 champ goal? Like, is that in the process, or it's legacy featherweight?
Well, I always talk about it, and I always feel that I should, but it's the formula, man. The formula is keep it simple. And if I'm keeping it simple, it's just my division, man. If I wanted to, you know, open up again and fight, I would definitely go down and fight Bibiano again. If it was up to me, if it was up to him to accept the fight, if we can get that going, then I would. But honestly, if the stars don't align, then I'm going to stay at featherweight for the rest of my life, and this is where it's going to be. Well, these are the contenders that I must take out before I venture on. And I didn't even know. I just got to take out these guys that I've given a name to Chatri and go from there.
And that's interesting because, we all know how difficult it is for you guys in weight cuts. And now, one championship's a little different, the hydration protocol, stuff like that. But that you prefer to go down instead of going up, especially say you went up to Christian, who you've already beaten twice. Maybe that's the thing. But is going down just about that Bibiano fight that you didn't get, that you lost, and that itch you still need to scratch, and that's part of it you want that, man?
Well, to be honest, I don't feel that it's fair if I go down and I fight for the title straight away. Yeah. I would fight someone. I would fight like a bantamweight fighter before I fight for the title. But in saying that, like it's just not something that really motivates me. Having that championship status. And for me, what motivates me is being the best person in this division, the featherweight division, and that's my ultimate goal, man. Like. I can talk on ego's sake and go, man, I want this, I want that, I want this, but I've already had my expectations so high and I got shut down, and it felt like I was like the lowest of the lows, and I had to rebuild myself back up. But I don't want to enter that building ever again, man. I just want to be me, man. Just keep it real, keep it simple, keep it at this weight division. I've got friends now that are in other weight divisions that I don't want to fight, and go from there.
Now, this one is getting your opinion as a champion. Now, a fascinating story recently was the news that Angela Lee's pregnant, and there will be an atomweight Grand Prix because she will not be giving up the belt, which led to an interesting Twitter back and forth between her and Denise Zamboaga, who I also noticed you tweeted with the popcorn, which is very funny. And honestly, I see Denise's point of view as the current #1 ranked fighter in the division because one has rankings. Now, this wasn't like an injury suffered by Angela. It was a life choice. And a life choice that may probably keep her out for 15 months because you would think she's probably going to want to have 4 or 5 months with a newborn after she gives birth. Now, Zamboaga probably deserves to be in a vacant title fight instead of traversing a whole Grand Prix just to say, yeah, I'm still #1 contender. Just spot she already has. What are your thoughts on that? Should Angela possibly give the title? She's going to get a title shot if she wants when she comes back, nonetheless. If she wins, she's still champion. What are your thoughts as a champion, as a father, and as a competitor? Should she relinquish the crown?
Man, like honestly, I don't want to get too involved in pick sides and anything like that. My point of view on this is, it is what it is, man. Obviously, Chatri is backing Angela on her pregnancy. Congratulations. Angela's chose not to vacate the title, and like good on Denise for speaking out. I mean, she's getting all the heat from Angela because she's the only one that had voiced about it. Yeah. I'm sure all the other 4 contenders, if they had spoken English as well, they would say something about it as well. But Denise is the one that is getting all the heat from it because she's the one that's spoken out. But in saying that, look at that, it's each to their own, man. Like, for real, I'm thinking worst case scenario, maybe it's like it's all going to be birds and bees and everything's going to be sweet and she's going to come back fine. I'm always thinking worst case scenario, you never know. She might need a C-section, and then put her out for 2.5 years. Yeah. The 9 months pregnancy, you got the recovery, and then you got the fight camp on top of that. So that 15 month or 12 months, whatever they're expecting, it could turn into 2.5 years, and you want to wait 2.5 years before you make that decision. It's each to their own. But I'm always thinking worst case scenario, what could be the worst possible case happening, and that's how I see it. But I mean, everyone else is different, and if one championship supporter are not giving up her belt, then it is what it is. Like, it's not like you're gonna, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it? For real, you're arguing so much and trying to put a girl down when she just found out she got pregnant as much. I mean, everyone has their own own view on this, and I'm sure majority of the people are telling her to vacate her title. But at the end of the day, it's if she's got the boss's support and the staff support and family support and her own words to live by, then it is what it is, man. You can't really say anything that's going to change her mind.
And to add to it too, I mean, Denise was probably the number one contender before the pandemic, so she's really gonna at least wait 2 years for sure. How about this? If it were you, would you vacate the title?
Definitely, man. Like it's a I know it's a selfish sport, and we want to keep everything to ourselves, but realistically speaking, you don't want the belt to be taken away from you if you're not losing it to
Of
somebody.
course, yeah, true.
Right? You really, I mean, if it's going to guarantee you a shot when you come back healthy, 100%, then yeah, man, why not? Like, just let someone else have a taste of glory before you take it away from them again. That's how I think. But
Yeah.
everyone's different, man. Everyone's different. You can't really, yeah. I don't know what to say from now. I'm trying to keep it, yeah.
Yeah, I know you're playing politics. That's you're very smart. You're a champion. I get it. I respect it. We all know your answer. I think, Martin. Though I got you though. Now you will be competing at the event dubbed Inside the Matrix. In the past, you have competed at Dawn of Heroes, Roots of Honor, Unstoppable Dreams, Iron Will, Quest for Power. Is there ever a time where you're like,
damn, did you just name all the events I've been on?
that's only some of them, which is crazy that all these have. Now, is there ever a point where you're like, guys, can't we just go with numbers? Do we need all these names, or what are you the kind of guy? I like the names. I don't like numbers.
Yeah, I don't really care, man. I don't if they want to name it a specific event, then it is what it is. I like this one coming up though. It's called Inside the Matrix or something like that.
Yeah.
Man, I've been moving like I've been inside the Matrix, so it kind of marries up. So man, yeah, it's just I like it. It is what it is. They make the names, and that's the way they promote their fights, and it is what it is.
Now, these are the set of questions coming from the Sherdog forums, come from fans and Instagram and stuff like that. Now, this first one is from Anth Masaki on Instagram. They ask, what age did you, Martin, start fighting, and what age was your first real fight? I will add one caveat to that. I'm sure he's saying, what was your first real professional fight? I want to know your first, like, real life fight. Like, real fight. Real life? Yes. What was your first real fight? How old were you for that fight?
I was probably like 8 years old. I was with my 6 years old. Yeah, it's 6, 7, or 8.
Was there blood at 6?
Yeah, there was.
Wow,
there was.
You were beating kids up at 6, Martin? Oh my goodness.
That was my next door neighbor. We grew up together. Man, we were best of mates. Wow. We still are very good mates at the moment.
Is he jealous that you beat him up at 6 years old?
This is why I have like majority of the scars on my face.
Wow.
They were like digging in like this. Wow. Yeah, it was like one of those type of fights, and that's where a majority of my scars are on my cheeks. It's because he had long nails and he just dug him in. I went home multiple times bleeding. I had scabs all over my face.
And you stayed friends with this kid? Oh my goodness!
It's just, our childhood things.
Wow. But going back to the question, when did you start doing it, like as a profession? Like when did you start fighting and your first fight and stuff like that?
So I started training at about like on and off, very, very on and off. I mean, like maybe once a week since I was 19-ish, and my wife gave me an ultimatum. We didn't have money then. We were very poor, and I was like, this was like a luxury training. Like, it wasn't like I was becoming a world superstar. I was training to lose weight, and so my wife gave me an ultimatum of either go and lift weights and try to lose weight, or maintain your bulkiness, or do martial arts, or like at where I was training at the time at KMA, and I canceled the membership at the gym, and I maintained throughout the martial arts route. I was falling in love with jiu-jitsu, and I was training jiu-jitsu at that time. Yeah, it was like once, maybe twice a week at the most. And that was going on for about 6 months, from 19 to about 20-ish. And then from 20 to 21, I started taking it serious. I was going 4 days, 5 days a week. And 21 was when I had my first bout against Ryan Maguire.
Mhm.
It was just a local show, amateur show. So yeah, actually the first time I went to compete against Ryan Maguire, um, instead of doing it was like bloods or something like that. He handed in like a urine test
Oh.
instead of blood. And like my left hand was wrapped. I was the second fight of the night.
Uh-huh.
My left hand was wrapped, and she's like the lady started wrapping my right hand, and then the judges and the officials came in and said, "Hey, Martin, you're not fighting tonight." I was like, yeah, I am. I'm ready to go. He goes, no, your opponent didn't hand in the right results, and
Wow.
so it's cancelled. And so that was cancelled. I had family and everyone there
Oh.
at the fight. My father was there, my uncle was there, everyone was there, and I couldn't fight. And so, in saying that, I had the same fight, that same guy rebooked two weeks later, and like the first time I weighed in against him, I was like, oh man, we're roughly the same size. And the second time we weighed in, I was like, holy crap, where did this guy come from? He's like this ballooned up, and I was like,
Wow.
and yeah, like I fought him, I took him down, won by a ground and pound first round, and since winning that, I was just chasing that feeling, just kept chasing that feeling of winning, and I went 8-0 as an amateur.
Now, this other question from Aiden Leong on Instagram. He's from Liverpool. Now, you kind of already answered it. It was two questions. He first asked, when did you start your martial arts journey, which you kind of already answered. But he also asked, and what does it take to be an MMA athlete? And I think that's a good question. That what do you feel is like that one to maybe three qualities you really need to be an athlete, an MMA athlete, a successful one? And also, kind of, when did you realize, yeah, I have it. I can do this professionally, and I can be really good at it.
I'm still learning as I go, but the first real things you're meant to have, man, is the discipline, staying on the path.
Mm,
You're gonna have highs and lows. You're gonna have more lows than highs, and you gotta expect that. You can't just be beat after first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th low.
yeah.
As low as you go, you kind of realize what your strengths are to get back up there, and work more. The hard work is another thing that I add in there. You just gotta put your head down, work. Some days you're gonna be beat up. Some days you're not gonna even want to step foot out of your room, and you'd rather pick up a controller than your bags and your gloves to jump in your car or jump on a train and bus to get to training. So it's the discipline to stay in the course, hard work in the gym, and the will to succeed. What are your motivations? What do you aspire from this sport? And go from there.
Did you kind of know you were gonna be at this good at this because you knew you had that kind of stuff to start, or did doing the training of MMA kind of instill some of those in you?
No, I thought that I was just gonna be just another regular guy. I was getting beat up every single day. I come home with black eyes. Um, going on dates with my wife with like one eye shut. I'll be like, oh, can I get, a medium steak, and yeah. Um, but it's man, it is what it is, man. You stay on the course, and if it works out for you, God's plan will work out, and if it doesn't, then you would know about it and you fight for it.
Now,
And that's it.
and this is a common question for any fighter not in the UFC. This one comes from the Sherdog forums from Jetty and the Bens. They ask, is there any fighter that is a free agent or with another organization that you wish one would sign you so you could fight them?
Um, I thought at a stage, I seen Frankie Edgar go over to Singapore, uh, because he was part of the Eddie Alvarez kid. I personally thought that he was going to sign, and I was going to have like an exciting fight with Frankie. But he obviously went over there for a UFC gym promotions. My luck got shut down. But it doesn't really matter, man. Anyone that joins the promotion, I'm there to do my job and prove to the world that I'm one of the very best.
Now, this question is more of like a gaming question. I had to clarify with the person because I didn't know what he was talking about at first. Now, this one comes from this one comes from Ivan Martin R1 Ion, quite a name. He on Instagram he asked on Instagram, which one is harder, getting a Warzone victory or winning the one featherweight title? Now, to clarify, he told me this is the Call of Duty Warzone game with the 250 gigabyte.
Oh, there, that is tough. Yeah, man, Warzone. It's obviously it's part of the game. It is what it is. I've won about maybe 89 times. Um, 5,000 games. I'm not too sure.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's crazy hard. And you know what? When you play with other people who leave on you and quit on you halfway through a game, it makes it even harder. But
Yeah.
gaming, man, I game to escape. Obviously, my whole job and my whole priority is MMA and providing for my family. But when I have the time, obviously, I use my gaming to escape from everything and from the MMA world and go from there.
Now this one, I always like this question. You've seen it. A lot of people have gotten various questions like this. I've asked Josh Barnett this, but he didn't give me a good answer. Tyler Durden asks, if you could fight any celebrity, alive or dead, who would you want to fight? And you know what? I will also add any fighter, alive or dead, or anybody, even politicians, alive or dead. Anybody that you like, that looks like a tough son of a bitch, or I wish that guy would get his ass whipped. I want to do it. Anything. Who would it be?
I'll fight Bruce Lee.
Oh, all right. We're going to, okay, fair enough, fair enough. Now, all right, the next one comes from Rebel Lion. They ask, is there any good Vietnamese food in Australia? Can Martin even eat it during training camp?
Man, this training camp in particular, I have been on weight, if anything, underweight. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, the lowest I came in was 154, which is basically 70 kilos flat. I weigh in at 55. So um, I eat anything I want. I train hard. I stay to the course. Everyone's saying, "Oh, how did you eat that when you're in core, when you're in fight camp?" Man, for me, my philosophy is if I have a happy camp, then my life will be set. So for me, food is a big thing. When I eat, I'm happy. And it brings everyone together. Food brings everyone together. So we sit and chat and we eat nice meals. And for me, I've been doing that every single day. I've been eating good, and I've been training hard, and I've been burning everything I eat, and the energy is there. Everything is there, and everything is right. So, man, I just had a cheeseburger before this.
Me
This
too. Wow, look at that. We're bonding already.
yeah, for me, for real. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I get to eat whatever I want. My body digests everything, and when I get into the training room, it's mind over matter. People say, "Oh, if you don't eat the right foods, it won't give you the right energy." Man, if you want to be in that room, if you want to be a lion, if you want to be a killer, man, you got to do what you have to do, and it pushes me, and I have the energy. I have no excuses.
I like that. You know, I think you've just given hope to a lot of people that maybe they can be fighters too, but which might be a bad thing. So I don't know if you should have did that. But anyway, now the next question comes from Damo2X. They ask, how long will he be staying, as in you, in one championship, and will he ever fight in the UFC? This is a question everybody outside the UFC gets, especially elite level fighters like yourself. Is the UFC a bucket list thing, or are you just one of the guys, one of those smart fighters who's like, if I'm making really good money, I'm just happy to make really good money?
Yeah, to be honest with you, man, like I said it. I said it. I get asked this every single day. I get asked this so many times a year. And from family members to messaging me, "Hey, man, my
Wow.
uncle are going to the UFC." For me, I'm with one championship until the wheels fall off, man. And I've said it, and I've quoted it until the wheels fall off. And for instance, if they come out and say, "Oh, Martin, we just don't have room for you on this roster no more," and I'm still an active athlete, then obviously yes, I'll look into getting into the American market and going from there. But for me, I've established myself as a one championship athlete. Man, I don't really have to talk trash or anything to
Yeah.
hype up my fight.
Yeah.
For 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 me as an athlete, I feel that my fighting and my fighting style brings people in to want to watch my fight. I don't have to talk shit about people's families or people's skills or anything like that. Um, and have dynamite in my hands and go from there. I don't need to talk shit like that. I just come and I do my thing. I fight, and the best man wins.
Now, and to follow up on that, 'cause I always talk to fighters about this, and I'm very supportive of when they do it. And I remember when Eddie Alvarez, I talked to him, he was pushing that any fighter should always, when the time comes though in your career, have you gone out into free agency? Do you at least maybe the next time it comes out, just to know what your value is with Bellator, with UFC, with PFL, because maybe it raises the value from one championship and raises your pay there? Or have you always been a guy that when one comes with a contract extension, you've always signed it?
Yeah, you basically just said it. It came to a point where I was on my last fight of my contract, and we were like literally one step onto free agency. But it was for me. It's all about my family's safety, my family being provided the best. I don't have to. I don't want to. I don't. Obviously, I want to make as much money as
Of
possible.
course, yeah.
The time that I have that's short in this sport, but for me, that if my family is taken care of, then I'm happy. And from what Chatchery has, we came to an agreement, and man, everything has been like so smooth. The guy is a super nice guy. One of the guys that we all look up to, and he gave me his word. I gave him my word, and we came to an agreement that I was with one championship until the rules fall off. And I'm happy. I'm happy at the moment, and I have been happy. And going from there, it's just like, why would I need to go anywhere else when my family's being looked after? Yeah, I can go and fight for $500,000 for a super fight, but that might just happen once, or I can't take chances when I have kids to provide for, and mortgages to pay and bills to pay. I can't go off a one fight, and that's the problem of these days. People just go for that one large bank check and hope for big things after it, but you never know if the big things are going to happen or not. Where one championship has guaranteed these little things that will lead to big things, and everything's been on point ever since then. So I don't know. I'm sure I posted it last year or so. I signed a 10-fight deal with one championship, man, and this will, depending on how my body feels, it most probably be my last fight on my contract. But you never know. If I feel great at 40 years old, I'll still fight. But we'll see what happens.
Our contracts with one, I think I know this, but our contracts with one, they're not like you see another promotion. It's not show and win. It's a flat rate. It's a set rate every fight, right? Or do they do show and win for you?
Show and win.
Oh, you still get show. Oh, right, fair enough. All right. Now this next question comes from Dylan96, also Instagram. They ask, I've been doing boxing and MMA for 3 years. I'm now 22. Is it too late to try and make a career?
No way, man. I started my career literally at 21. You're 1 year shy, but you've got more experience to what I did compared to myself back then. You've got the boxing background. It took me 3 years or so, 4 years I've been with my coach now to learn boxing. For you've had that throughout your teenage life. It's like a sponge, I had to learn it from, not even being a sponge. I was like, out partying, and, I had a kid at the time. It was all like crazy, man. So I had to learn other things at the same time and work. But you've got experience behind your back. So now obviously the next step is the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu side, and you have a great team behind. If you get a great team behind you, the sky's the limit, man.
How he has a follow-up question, but before I get to follow, that made me think of another one. How important is it finding a gym? And for a person that's never had to find a gym, an MMA gym, is it hard? Like, have you heard horror stories from guys and girls you've met over the years? Like, I went to this gym and they were fucking terrible. This coach sucked. Like, is it hard to really find that gym where that can take you to success? Is it based on like where you live? Like, maybe you live in an area that doesn't have it. Like, how hard is that, and how important is that?
It's definitely very hard, and it's definitely very important to find the right gym. You might go in there, and at first you might feel like you're just a body, but it's up to you to to take in everything that they offer, and it's all about the connection. So if you connect with them, then it's like that type of friendship, brotherhood that they want to see you succeed. That's what you need to see. But if you don't see that in them, then there's other gyms out there that might. You never know unless you take that step out the door. And I'll give you an example. Like for the gym that I was with, it became so successful, but to a little bubble that I was in, and I was so comfortable of just that little success that it came to a point where it didn't work no more, and I had to take the step. I had to take the step outside the bubble and venture out. And thankfully enough, this is my second gym that I've ever been to that I stayed at, which is Sanford, and everything. The formula is just like I've become a complete different fighter. Yeah, taking in everything. You know, sitting with Henry at dinner or sitting with him in the gym room and just taking everything he says in. It's like a philosophy class. Yeah, you got Greg Jones as well. The guys, uh, I think, sports psychologist as well as a elite wrestler. And I'm just like, when he speaks, you're just like, oh man, you just want to. You feel like you're in
Yeah.
class, but you're not in class. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now his follow-up question, which is a great question too, in that I've talked to fighters about this, and I love how they admit for some of them it cannot be really fun. Is that he asks, "What's the best way to strengthen shins for kicking? I feel if I go 100% power, they'll break." I've heard fighters have told me kicking sucks. I know some people can do it. What's your advice for kicking and being good at it and not sucking?
It's breaking that fear, the fear of kicking. People will kick, but they'll pull back that last second. For me, I kick heavy bags and bodies, which that's the closest thing. I know there's people out there that they roll the bar on their shins
Yeah.
just to get their shin nerves and all. Anyway, anyways, for me, I like to kick realistic, as in kicking bodies. I obviously have shin guards on when I kick bodies, or the main thing is kicking the heavy bag. And it's all about overcoming the fear of breaking your leg, like an Anderson Silva style. Like
Yeah.
if it happens, it is what it is, man. But I'm sure your opponent will feel it just as much as you would when you kick him. So it's just breaking that fear of throwing a kick. And when you do, it's just like, for me, I really don't care. I don't even bite down or anything. I'm just like, man, I'm gonna kick the shit out of you. I just like a ball, like I'm kicking a ball,
Yeah.
and it is what it is.
Now
If I'm, if you know.
we got a big featherweight main event coming up in the UFC this weekend. Korean Zombie versus Brian Ortega. What are your thoughts on that fight? You know, I got a pros pick video out on it. Most people seem to be leaning Korean Zombie. I think also just because he's popular, people like him and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that fight? How do you see it playing out?
I feel Korean Zombie has a slight edge.
Mm.
Obviously, he's I wouldn't say as slick as Brian Ortega on the ground, but he fights long, and when he
Yeah.
fights long, he's got power behind it. And we seen Ortega have trouble with that against Max
Yeah.
Holloway.
Yeah.
When he fights longer people and he gets tagged a bit too much, then you've seen him crumble. But you never know, man. He might have adjusted. I know I've got another team that helping him out to adjust that. But Korean Zombie, I've always been a fan of Korean Zombie, man. Since his fight with since the Twister onto the Dustin Poirier fight,
Yeah. Yeah.
man. One guy that I admire when I watch, and he's such a good, like you can tell he's a good guy. When you feel his vibe, he's not like
Yeah.
a shit talking guy or anything like that. He has morals and respect, and that's what I like about him. And he can fight, and that's the main thing. So, but you know, in that featherweight division, I got my boy Alexander Volkanov. It doesn't really matter for those featherweights, man. Alex is gonna be a champion for a long time.
Now Brian Ortega, he's actually been, I think he's been out of action like 14 months, 15 months, something like that. You can give me the know-how on this because I've talked to fighters and they'll often say the times where they can get better, learn new things, expand the game, expand the skill set is in between fights when they're not, say, focusing on one particular opponent and their skills. For something like that, could we maybe see a very different on a lot of levels Brian Ortega having gone for so long without maybe focusing on one guy or focusing enough on Korean Zombie that he doesn't have to continue a 6-month camp knowing, okay, yeah, I got to work on him. Like, could he come in and work on those things, like you said, those weaknesses against Max Holloway? Can you change a lot in like 8 months?
You can change your whole style completely.
Okay.
From going from, like for myself, going from 2018 to 2019, I feel like I've evolved so much as a fighter, and that's the 12 months or the 9 months that I had off. From going from the Bellingham fight onto the Judemba fight, you know, I came back with a vengeance, and you never know with Ortega, you can never count him out as well. He can come back with a vengeance. He can come back as a complete different fighter. You never know. And that's as you said, man. The time in between fights is the time where you learn the most. Obviously, cage time matters, and cage time is very important. It's experience, but the time in the gym is what counts the most. You know, if you need to build that lion, you need to build that machine in the gym for it to perform on the field or in the cage, and that's what it is, man. Like he might come back and be like go on another 5-fight winning streak. You never know. And that's the beauty of martial arts. When you go in there, mixed martial arts, when you go in there, it's always a 50-50 fight, and that's how it is, no matter what.
All right, now this is the last one. This was a topic. It's been we've been bombarded by on the MMA news sites for like the last week or so. John Jones, Adesanya, they're beefing. They're getting personal. You know, all this stuff. What are your thoughts? One, on just that fight in general, how that fight could play out. Who do you think would win? And also, two, maybe this goes to your idea of like just what you love about one championship, maybe don't like about the world outside. What do you think about this kind of stuff when it gets so personal on Twitter and you're talking about deceased parents and you know where you grew up and how you act? Like, are these the moments where you're like, I'm glad I'm not in the UFC?
100%, man. I personally don't like it at all, man. The fight itself, I like. Obviously, it's a fight to make. It's a fan favorite fight.
Yeah.
Obviously, the fans is what buys the tickets for them to make the money. Going on that type of route, that's what they want, and if they want to make money, that's the fight to make. But in saying that, you know, the stuff, I'm sure a majority of it is coming from John Jones' side. It's just Adesanya is just defending himself or in one way or another. And you can't fuel a fire to put it out. You know, you just put fuel on the fire, it's gonna explode, and that's what's happening at the moment. It's exploding all over Twitter.
Yeah.
Now everyone is looking into it, and it kind of shows your character. And I don't like that. You know, you can be a full respectable person in a gym, but when you start talking trash like that, and showing a different side, it's no good, man, and it's no good for character and morale, and you know, your legacy in general. You know, you can have like a great legacy, and then people can just remember that one thing and go, hey man, I remember when you talk shit about that guy's dead dad.
Yeah.
Like yeah, man. Like people remember little things like this, man. It's not a good thing. It's not a good sight to have. And in terms of the fight, I'd love for him to fight. It's a good fight to make. They got they're very slick and they're strong, and you know, Adesanya is just new levels. But in terms of their Twitter beef, man, like squash the Twitter beef and just like that's the ultimate ultimatum.
Now, you know, I've thought about that. You brought up Adesanya's like strike and stuff like that. I feel one way about it. Like if Adesanya fought Prime Anderson, I feel Anderson would beat him. What do you think? Would Adesanya beat Prime Anderson, or is Prime Anderson still maybe the greatest striker we've ever seen?
Adesanya is good, man. I gotta yeah. You can hate as much as you want on the guy,
Yeah.
but he's gotten better every single fight.
Very true.
And he doesn't jump from one fight onto the next. He has a fight, and he goes back with his camp. It's about 8 months or so before he has another fight, and in that 8 months or whatever time that he has off, and he's doing his business ventures and fight camps, he's getting better and better and better. And compare that fight against Gastelum to it's the styles, man. He just changed, he adapts, and he does everything right to win, man. And you know, everyone thought in that last fight, Costa was just gonna come out like just a bodybuilder, like come out and just you know break him down. And Adesanya's will to win was just too much, man. It was just he broke him down completely in the first round, and yeah, ultimately got the win.
All right, so that's pretty much all we're going to do here. You know, before we go, Martin, is it let the folks know the social, the Twitter, the Instagram, any projects you're possibly working on, anything you want people out there to know before this fight coming up on the 30th?
Yeah, so obviously Instagram, I'm very on Instagram and anything. It's Martin MartinINN. With my Facebook, it's this is Martin Situation Nguyen. Twitter, it's Martin Nguyen MMA. Man, if you guys got any questions, any advice you need, hit me up, man. I'm always talking to everyone every single day. I'm not one of those snobby athletes that got no time. Yeah, and if it's within reasonable timing and I'm on conversation with you, I'll answer your questions. But other than that, man, nothing too fancy at the moment. We are planning to open a gym back in Australia.
Oh, nice.
Fight Art Industries in a local area near us, and just start building champions. Not only champions, but just building better people every single day, and for everyone to come and feel good about themselves ultimately. So that's in the projects, that's in the works with my coach Chrysler and David Cooey and Bill as well. So we're working together to build a good environment, good people, good positive vibes for everyday life for the rest of our lives. So.
When do you foresee, like, do you have like a grand opening date in mind? Do you guys have a website up yet where people can start getting early information and stuff on it?
So right now, at the moment, we just got our Instagram page, and we're just slowly building that. But we have multiple meetings, and we get together and we talk as much as possible, building it up as much as possible, see what ideas are out there, and we compare it to the people in our neighborhood as well. So it's just all, it's just all building everything before we
All
go
right.
full fundraising. So definitely.
All right, that's pretty much it. I'm Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com. He is Martin Nguyen, the champ. Catch him on October 30th inside the Matrix for one championship against Tonley. Until next time, everybody.